Hello, BookTube. We're going to try our hand at another calm, controlled mail haul. We've got a few packages here. We'll see what's interesting in them. That's always fun to rummage through the books together. And we'll try to keep the long 20-minute Grandpa Simpson rants to a minimum so that we don't have a whole string of 30-minute videos. So we'll start with this one. Keeping in mind the basics here, number one being if you see anything here that you absolutely want, that you really, really want, not a casual passing interest that, may be gone in the next minute, but where something like, you've spent the last 5 years studying Peruvian fruit bats and I get a book on Peruvian fruit bats, something like that, then let me know. And I'd be happy to send you the book once I've done my duty by it. And number two, I won't be a broken record about this, but keep in mind, Open Letters is still open for business. We have a new look, a new site, a new masthead, mostly. But if you are interested in trying your hand at reviewing any of these books, let me know. We can maybe make it happen. Anyway, what's the first? Oh, great. Fantastic. All right. This is by Nathan Lentz, and it's called Human Errors. Deal with the sunlight there. And it is a book that unintentionally refutes the idea of intelligent design, because it's all about a panorama of our glitches from pointless bones to broken genes. That's why it has a broken machine on the cover. We humans like to think of ourselves as highly evolved creatures, but if we are evolution's greatest creation, why do we have such bad knees? Why do we catch head colds so often, 200 times more often than a dog does? How come our wrists have so many useless bones? Why is the vast majority of our genetic code pointless? And are we really supposed to swallow and breathe through the same narrow tube? Surely there's been some kind of mistake. As Professor of Biology Nathan Lentz explains in Human Errors, our evolutionary history is nothing if not a litany of mistakes, each more entertaining and enlightening than the last. That sounds like a lot of fun. It's mainly why I requested this thing, because it sounds like a lot of fun. All right, now we'll move on here. What is this next one? Harvard University Press. Comes out in March, and it's by Christopher White, and it's called Other Worlds, Spirituality and the Search for Invisible Dimensions. What do modern multiverse theories and spiritual seances have in common? Nothing. They have nothing in common. Nothing. Not much, it would seem. One is an elaborate scientific theory developed by the world's most talented physicists. The other is a spiritual practice widely thought of as backward, the product of a mystical worldview fading under the modern scientific gaze. But the author sees striking similarities. He does not claim that seances or other spiritual practices are science, yet he points to the way that both spiritual practice and scientific speculation about multiverses and invisible dimensions are efforts to peer into the hidden elements and even the existential meaning of the universe. Absolutely wrong. That is absolutely wrong. Other Worlds examine how the idea that the universe has multiple invisible dimensions has inspired science fiction, fantasy, films, modern art, and all manner of spiritual thought, reaching well beyond the realm of formal religion. Drawing on a range of international archives, White analyzes how writers, artists, filmmakers, televangelists, and others have used the scientific idea of invisible dimensions to make supernatural phenomena such as ghosts and miracles seem more reasonable, and make spiritual beliefs possible again for themselves and others. There's a word missing from that sentence. There's a key word missing from that sentence. Let me read it again. I will add the word, and I will emphasize it. Drawing on a range of international archives, White analyzes how writers, artists, filmmakers, televangelists, and others have badly used the scientific ideas of invisible dimensions. Badly used them. No one on that list is a scientist. Scientists don't say anything stupid about those other dimensions. Scientists don't claim that they know what those other dimensions might be. They don't claim how they work. They don't claim to have personal, biological access to them. And they don't claim that your great aunt Edna is still getting a load out of reading John le Carré in that other dimension, and that if you do the right thing, say the right thing, sit in the right position, are very quiet, and of course, first of all, pay your $150 up front in cash, she'll show up and tell you all about it. They aren't in any way alike. One is a scientific guess about which scientists say we know no details whatsoever. Even the guess might be wrong. The figures, the facts lead us to think this might be a possibility. That is a world different from Madame Blavatsky sitting at a round table with you and saying, you know, I know you're really eager to know where Uncle Ernie left the key to the safe deposit box, and well, let's see if we can coax him from the world beyond. I read the self-published books of people who claim to know about that world beyond every day. I read a new one every day. They are not lacking for details. They know all about that world. They know every single nook and cranny, every hill and dale. They know its geography, they know who's there, they know who's not there, they know who's been there the longest, they know how they talk to each other. They don't know any of this stuff. It's all... No scientist would ever dream of saying anything like that about the hypothesis of parallel dimensions. And when you, Christopher White, professor of religion at Vassar College, how did I guess that he was a professor of religion rather than a scientist? When you write a book that equates the two of them, you can hand wave all you want about how you're not equating them. You're doing serious harm. You are furthering the dumbing down of common conversation that is already dumbing down mighty fast without your help. They are not even similar, much less ideologically equivalent. They are not even similar. Anyway, let's just move on. That's the kind of thing that's going to slow us down. Let's see what's next here. Okay. Looks like this is a paperback original. Is it the paperback original? It is. It's a paperback original. Comes out in August. And it's by Sophia Grant. It's called The Daisy Children. Sometimes the untold stories of the past are the ones we need to hear. Just going to forge on. When Katie Garrett gets the unexpected news that she's received an inheritance from the grandmother she hardly knew, it couldn't have come at a better time. She flees Boston and her increasingly estranged husband and travels to rural Texas. There she's greeted by her distant cousin Scarlett. Friendly, flamboyant, eternally optimistic, Scarlett couldn't be more different from sensible Katie. And as they begin the task of sorting through their grandmother's possessions, they discover letters and photographs that uncover the hidden truths about their shared history and the long-forgotten tragedy of the New London school explosion of 1937 that ends up binding them together. And Sophia Grant, in case you were wondering, has the heart of a homemaker, the curiosity of a cat, and the keen eye of a scout. She had to write that herself. She has the heart of a homemaker, the curiosity of a cat, and the keen eye of a scout. Well, I don't know if I want to read her book. I certainly want to meet her now. She works from an urban eyrie in Oakland, California. Okay, so from the plot description, it sounds like at the very last minute, to avoid the wrath of Steve, the title of this book was changed to The Daisy Children from The Daisy Girls. It sounds very much like that happened. And because I am an easy god to appease, it worked. So I will read this book and maybe I'll enjoy it. Let's move on here. What's this next one? Oh, it's big, whatever it is. It's nice and big. Oh my. All right. This is a finished copy of David Carradine's Victoria's Century, which is about the height of the power of Victorian England. It's United Kingdom, 1800 to 1906. The century of the long Victorian era that he's one of my favorite living historians, and I never got an advance copy of this book. The Boston Globe got one. The Christian Science Monitor got one, but not this old Boston institution. Ordinarily when you don't get an advance copy of a book, sometimes that means you're not going to get the book at all. And I was worried that would be the case, that I might have to what's the word you people use? Buy? I might have to buy a copy of the book, which means you go to a store and you exchange currency for the book. And you get to keep the book, but you don't get to take the currency back. So I'm very happy that I don't have to do that. This comes out in late February, and it is just, look at that. Oh my, my. 19th century Britons experienced an astonishing and unprecedented series of changes. Cities swelled to previously unimaginable sizes. There were great leaps forward in science and technology that, when coupled with growing religious skepticism, rendered the intellectual landscape increasingly unrecognizable. Most of the countries in the world that experienced these changes were racked by political and social unrest. However, Britain maintained a stable polity at home, and as a result, quickly found ascendancy on the world stage. I agree with all of that, although I have a reason why Britain maintained a stable polity at home that no historian in the 21st century is ever going to agree with me about. And I'm just going to have to learn to live with that, that's all. Of course, the difference is Queen Victoria herself. The difference is the Queen. But nobody's going to believe that, so I'll just let it rest. Instead, I'll hear probably most loudly from the people in the UK. I'll hear about how the royal family are parasites and they don't do any good and they never have. They never worked a day in their life. Most people in the country ignore them. They don't have any effect on national opinion or optimism. Nevertheless, I'm sticking by my theory. It's Queen Victoria who is responsible in some very fundamental ways for the glories of the Victorian era. Let's move on to this next one. This is our last one for today. It's huge. Oh, very nice. This is Elizabeth George. This is The Punishment She Deserves. It's the gigantic new Elizabeth George novel. I love this author. Sergeant Detective Barbara Havers and Detective Inspector Thomas Linley being her famous character, are forced to confront the past as they try to solve a crime that threatens to tear apart the very fabric of quiet, historic, medieval town in England. The cozy, bucolic town of Ludlow is stunned when one of its most revered and respected citizens is accused of a serious crime. Then, while in police custody, he's found dead. Did he kill himself, or was he murdered? When Barbara Havers is sent to Ludlow to investigate the chain of events that led to this man's death, all the evidence points to suicide, but Barbara can't shake the feeling that she's missing something. She decides to take a closer look at the seemingly ordinary inhabitants of Ludlow, mostly elderly retirees and college students, two troublesome groups, and discovers that almost everyone in town has something to hide. I love it. Classic detective story. I love it. Okay, fantastic. This comes out in late March, and this is, I don't even want to know. This author has written so many books. Look at that, a whole page of books. But I gobble them up. I love them. I love the Inspector Linley novels. So there you go. That is a fairly controlled mail haul. So this is The Punishment She Deserves by Elizabeth George. Victoria's Century by David Kennedy. Look at that. Oh my. Then The Daisy Girls, The Daisy Children by Sophia Grant. Then Other Worlds by Christopher White, which is going to the front of the reading queue and is going to have me yelling the whole time I read it. I feel certain that it is. It's going to have me yelling the whole time. And Human Errors by Nathan Lentz, about why your back aches the way it does. And there you go. A nice controlled mail haul. And I'll be back soon. Thank you, BookTube.